this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time again. We're going to play What's in My Pot, and we're also going to play the game of You Have Fallen Over for the Last Time. This is Dendrobium Bullenium, I think it is. It says on here Bullenianum. Close. And this was hand picked for me from Orchids and more by one of my viewers, a sort of job lot that I selected, and then they were personally picked out to try and find the best of the set that they had, as opposed to just buying on the internet when you get what you're given. So obviously hand picked is far better, and this was a good one. It had some good new growths which have pushed on a lot more than I thought they were going to, so it's become incredibly top heavy. And although this type of Dendrobium treatment wise it's sort of similar to a Latoria, but it does need to be a bit drier in the winter, but not a formal severe rest like some of them need to get. So I can cope with it on a mount a lot easier, plus it's never going to fall over again. I've tried staking it, tying it, standing it in a clay pot to give it to some stability, and it won't have it. It's just, these are very heavy long canes. As a consequence, when I mount it, I don't know whether I'm going to get away with tying it with the fishing line, which if the plant's heavy is not a good idea, because you end up pulling the fishing line so tight to hold the plant in place because of the weight that you can cut into it. And if it's in that sort of state, then I choose to wire it. So I've got some wire, but I won't know really till I get it out of the pot. I don't usually do this sort of thing in the morning, which is why often the cup is replaced by a glass, because I'm usually doing this sort of thing last in the day. But I put this one separate yesterday when I watered everything deliberately, because it fell over again. And I thought, that's it, that's your last chance, mate. You're never going to fall over again. I might drop you, but you're not going to fall over again, that's for sure. So first job really is to let's see what sort of thing we've got in the pot. In theory it shouldn't be too bad, but you know what theories can be like. So let's unstrap it, first job. Get the stake out of the way. Certainly won't need that again. And get rid of the debris, and we can get it out of its pot and see what we've got. I suspect this should be reasonable. It was certainly reasonable when it went in there, and I got this in October last year, so it hasn't been in this pot that long, not really. But as I said, I think it's just going to do better on a mount. Yeah, there's quite a lot of dead roots in the centre there. I wonder if I cleaned the plug out when I got it. I would imagine I did, I normally do. Yeah, there's some pretty good roots in here, and since it's been in the pot it's decided to grab hold of a lot of the pieces of bark, which probably means they're going to stay there. A little bit of bark in amongst a mounted orchid doesn't do it any harm, and as long as it's a really small amount it doesn't even matter that much if it breaks down, which it will do eventually obviously, and will speed up the process of breaking down on the mount because the mount gets watered incredibly frequently, so the bark will stay wet certainly in the growing season. But a little bit won't hurt. I mean, the moss is going to break down on the mount anyway, so you know, you may have to renew your moss on the mount, but there's certainly a good enough root system there to secure it, and it is showing signs at the base of new root growth. There's no sign of new actual growths at the moment, but then it produced those last year. I mean, this was nothing like this size when I got it, and it's a good plant, and I think it's going to do well upside down. I don't know whether anybody worries about the look of a plant. When you first hang a plant, when it's been growing upright, the leaves are upside down and they look a bit wrong, but this eventually is going to become deciduous. It blooms on the older leafless cane, so fat chance of getting any blooms on that because I haven't got any, but I will have. So these canes are still, they're still growing. They've still got growing tips on them, so they haven't even finished growing yet. Now I don't know at what point they will finish growing. They might carry on growing throughout this season and hopefully put up some new growths from the base to go with them, to grow on, if you know what I mean. But yeah, these canes are still in active growth at the moment, so they're going to get longer. I don't know how much longer, but they're going to get longer. So I'll give that a clean up under the tap and get the worst of it off. Any bark that comes off under the tap without pulling can come off, and any that is attached like that can just stay there. I'm not that fussed. So I'll be back when I've had a clean up. Okay, that cleaned up quite nicely. Most of the bark's come off, in fact. There's a couple of big lumps that are well attached to relatively new roots, so they can just stay there. It's got a naturally flat base that way round, so that's the way it's going to go. As there's no signs of new growths, I don't know where the next new growths are going to come from, but they'll come from the base, that's one thing that's for sure. Decision to tie or to wire has actually been made by the plant itself. If these canes haven't finished growing, they're going to get bigger, they're going to get longer, they're going to get heavier, plus, hopefully, down the line, there'll be more of them. So it's going to get to be quite a heavy plant. So it's going to get wired on so that it stays there, basically. Now my new theory of mounting is based on not having any moss underneath the plant, and the reason for that is quite sound. Moss will break down even on a mount, and if it breaks down and it's underneath the root system, you've practically got to take the plant off to remove the decaying moss. Whereas if you keep the moss around the top of the plant, not that I want too much on this one, obviously you can just tease it off and any roots that are attached to the mount can stay there. You don't need to disturb the whole plant. Now I always used to put a big wodge of moss underneath the plant, but I don't anymore. But I do want to get some up in amongst the root base as well as around the plant. I think the easiest way is to get a little bit there and then get a piece of wire round, hold it in place, and then add some more moss and then continue wrapping the wire around. And I think I might need a fair old bit. I'm going to need to go round 1, 2, 3, probably 4 times. So you know, that's a fair length of wire. 1, 2, 3, 4. Allow for 5. It's only a little bit of wire. Stacks of this stuff. When I was really into bonsai, and I had loads of the flipping things, I was also into wiring the branches to shape, you know, to give them some form and everything. So I bought loads of blinking wire, and the cheapest way to buy it is in a big roll. Well, now I don't wire my branches anymore. The ones I've got don't need it done, and I'm not getting any more bonsai, so I've got excess wire. I've got it coming out my ear rolls, basically. Right. Now, because this is wire, it naturally lends itself to bending round the mount and staying where it's put. So I'm going to go round twice to make sure this plant stays still, and then I'll get some more moss on, which can then be held in place. If the worst comes to the worst and you have trouble getting the moss to stay where you want it, wire the plant first and then just gently tie the moss on afterwards. You see what I mean? That way you can use your fishing line or your string or whatever you choose. I think that will do. All I need is sufficient on here to keep it hydrated, but the fact that it's a mount in my environment, it's going to get hydrated because at this time of year it's going to get absolutely drowned every single day. It'll stay hydrated. It's not like in a pot. Yeah, I do see some signs of new roots in places, so I am quite pleased. Right, this is merely... I need an arm that's longer so it doesn't bash the canes around. Along with the third hand, you know, if somebody can get that organised, that would be good. Another 1,000,000 years of evolution, we'll end up with 4 arms, no legs, because nobody moves about anymore. Everybody sits in front of their flipping TV. So we'll end up with more arms and lose the use of our legs. Oh, and of course we'll have huge thumbs for texting, you know, because we don't use our fingers much, we only use our thumbs nowadays. You think I'm joking? And then I'm just going to loop that round there so that I can pull it, and each one of those little loops will then get tightened slightly. And I'll hold them all nicely together. Right, now, before I stop, is it hanging on there? Yes. Yes. Nice and firm. Get me tag on. I'm getting so many plants now. I used to say, it's alright, I don't need tags, I know what all my plants are. Well, that's not working so well nowadays. Not with the number I've got now anyway. It's just not working so well. There's also, the more you get, the more you will get that have similarities, and you just, you know, get a tag. It's easy enough to do. So there we go, that's that one done. That's the last time you fall over, mate. All I've got to do is not drop it. So that's not bad. It's got a, where's my camera? Now let me just lift that up a bit. It's a long plant. That's better. It's nicely secure. It's not going anywhere. And with a wire, you can always do that. Yeah, you can always. It'll stay where it's put. So you can always tighten it very, very slightly by just pushing on the loops. Just pull it in if you need to, of course. And quite honestly, using quite stiff wire like that, it's gentler than the fishing line, definitely, you know, but it has a firm grip, and once it's there it don't move. Well, fishing line's the same. Once that's there it doesn't move. So we've got signs of some new root growth. There's some good active roots in amongst what's there, and I think that should take off now, and hopefully we'll see some new growth down the line. Do you blinking believe it? Now I've turned it upside down, I've seen some bugs. It's that time of year, they're just getting about. Oh, and while we're on bugs, you may have seen me attempting to kill scale with hydrogen peroxide. You'll laugh at this. I mixed up that, I put the hydrogen peroxide in the spray for a reason. I wanted to get at some algae, which it will deal with quite well. And I left it in the bottle. In my mind, I'd changed it to the 70% isopropyl alcohol, but in reality I hadn't done that. So I'm merrily spraying my scale on my plants with something that doesn't really kill scale. Hydrogen peroxide is not that good a killer. It'll whack out snails, it's pretty good at that, and it will at least degrade mould and algae spores and all that sort of stuff. So for cleaning up algae and things like that and making sure there's no mould or anything around or spores, it's not bad, but it's not an effective killer of bugs, not really, whereas the alcohol can be. But remember, with the alcohol, it's not the alcohol that does the killing, it's the evaporation. It's the fact that it soaks into things and then rapidly evaporates, leaving them totally dehydrated, i.e. brown bread, dead. So yeah, any little scale problems or anything like that, certainly my scale, if I get any, they always seem to start around the base of the plant, and you need to go careful dosing up soft leafy tissues with the alcohol, because it can do some cell damage. But around the base of a plant where they're nice and woody and strong, it's not going to do any harm. And it evaporates so flipping fast anyway that it's not there long enough to do much harm. But it will do a reasonable job, you know, with the bugs. Anyway, that's that one done. Go and hang that one up. That one won't need watering today. It's about the only mount that won't get watered today. And I'll see you next time. And we'll see how this one progresses. As I said, these canes are still growing. They've been growing since I got it. The canes are just getting longer and fatter. So it's growing well, but I would like to see some signs of new growth at some point. But longer days, warmer temperatures, you know, that's highly likely to start producing some new growth now. So that's that one done. See you next time.